If you have a leaky E90 or are due for a transmission service, this is the right video for you. We're going to be going through and replacing our plastic pan for a metal pan, and we'll also be replacing the fluid with some fresh LiquiMoly ATF fluid. You can also utilize BMW OEM transmission fluid, but this stuff is more than good enough. Let's get the car up and get to work. With the car in the air, we can start by draining the fluid. This utilizes a size 10mm hex. Look at that yucky fluid draining out. That is not clean and was definitely due for a service. To speed up the draining process, we can remove the fill plug. The fill plug is located on the side of the transmission and it is a size 8 hex. Make sure that you get an Allen hex so that you can have the 90-degree angle in order to have proper leverage to open it. Without it, you'll be stuck in the same situation we were. Remember to take off the heat shield before attempting to take off any of the bolts. That heat shield will get in the way and will not allow us to take off the pan properly. Let's also make sure that we plug up that drain hole or put the drain plug back in so we don't have oil going everywhere. The pan is held in by 24 T45mm bolts, so let's start removing them all one by one. Oh yeah, I completely forgot to remove the exhaust hanger. So make sure you remove this exhaust hanger because it won't let you get to the bolts at the back. This exhaust hanger is actually held in by an E12, so make sure you have those fancy smanchy sockets. Now that we have everything off, let's continue to remove all these bolts without making a big mess. With all the bolts off, let's lightly pry off the pan and drain all the remaining fluid into our drain pan. Yuck. This fluid was not clean at all. I am very happy we're finally doing this fluid change. Looking at the solenoids, everything looks clean and not gunky, thankfully, so at least it means it's been serviced once or twice. Using some brake cleaner, let's clean off that mating surface so that the new gasket can seat correctly. If towels with brake cleaner are not enough to remove the remaining gunk on the top of that transmission, let's go grab a plastic or a metal razor and remove the remainder. That way we can seat that new gasket and pan freshly so it's sealed and no more leaks exist. The new pan is fresh with a brand new filter and brand new gasket on it. Not to mention it is metal and won't crack from a few little rocks. In order to install the pan, let's first place it up and try to center it. Centering it, we will use all the bolts and put them in one by one to make sure that it is seated properly before we start initiating the bolt down and torquing sequence of the bolts. A great tip and thing to do is actually to print off our torquing sequence and torquing specs so that we don't have to pull out our phone or take off our gloves or get oil everywhere. This will be nice and easy and it'll be right in our faces. The link to the torque sequence will be found in the description below. Following that diagram, let's bolt these in and then torque them down to spec. The torque is actually quite small at only 10 Newton meters, so let's make sure to not over torque all these bolts. One key tool that you need is an 8 metric hex Allen, because this will allow you to get in right to the oil fill pan for the transmission fluid and pop it open. Without it, it's very difficult to get in there because it is at an angle and you would have to drop the trans to get something else in there. What a pain that was to get out. Never again.
Jesus.
As you can see, we're using a pneumatic pump in order to extract and dispense the fresh fluid. Just make sure that your pump isn't on dispense when you're trying to extract, because you'll make a big mess like I just did. This is when those shop towels and super clean comes in handy in order to clean up oil all over your garage or shop floor. Filling the fluid is actually quite easy. We put our tube in and then we dispense all the fluid from our little pump into it. We want to fill it until we start seeing it drip out. Once it's dripping out, that's when we can actually go, run the car, run it through each of the gears and make sure that all the solenoids are in that fresh fluid. You want to do this multiple times, especially if your transmission was leaking for an extended period of time and you have potentially dry solenoids. The first time you fill the amount won't be the exact amount that you need. Once you complete this procedure at least 1 or 2 times, or like in my case, I did it 4 times, you can move to just checking if there's any remaining dripping happening from the fill plug. Doing this procedure multiple times also lets us make sure that the transmission fluid is up to temperature. They recommend using a thermometer, or you can actually just check it by hand. If it's nice and warm, it's probably at around 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's the right temperature for the transmission to be at. Now that we've filled the fluid, turned on the car, ran through all the gears, we can see if there's any other fluid dripping out. We can see that there's just a little dribble, which means that it is nice and full at temperature, and we can close it up, torque it down to spec, which is about 15 foot-pounds, and we are completed. So once we get this back down in there, we can go take it for a test drive, and we're done. And you're done as well. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Remember, Parts Avatar has got your back, so don't forget to subscribe to the Parts Avatar channel so you don't miss any of these exciting videos.